There are many basic skills required to drive and operate a motor vehicle. Many of these skills may seem to be basic, but the truth is, they become increasingly difficult when it's time to avoid traffic violations, accidents, and other related problems. In fact, there is nothing basic about many of the skills that make up the driving tasks we need to be a safe driver and to avoid unsafe situations. The driving task, and more specifically, defensive driving, are necessary to allow drivers to be safe. Drivers need to properly share the roads and highways with others, and use these tasks and defensive driving skills to prepare for the unexpected. Practicing good defensive driving techniques, working to improve the driving task, as well as knowing and obeying traffic laws and regulations, will keep you safe, as well as the many other drivers you are sharing the road with. The first driving task is the skill of proper turning. We call it tracking your vehicle. This simply means keeping your car in a desired path. First, look well ahead of your car. In fact, you should be aware of what's happening at least 12 seconds ahead of your car if possible. Steer to a point in the center of your intended path, but keep your eyes moving. Make slight adjustments in your steering as you turn and do not oversteer. It's sometimes common for new drivers to overcorrect when they are turning, which can be dangerous, especially at a busy intersection. So, the best thing to do is to use what's called the 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock hand position on the steering wheel. Look at the steering wheel as if it were a clock. Your left hand should be in the 9 o'clock position, while your right hand is at the 3 o'clock position. When steering around corners, there are a few different types of turning methods. There's the hand-over-hand technique, working with the top half of the wheel and keeping your hands on the outside of the wheel. There is also the controlled slipping or slip-loose method, which is simply loosening your grip and allowing the wheel to recover inside your grip. Another common turning method is the push-pull method, which is firmly grasping the wheel with your left hand at about the 7 o'clock position. Push the wheel until your hand is about 11 o'clock. Then slide your right hand to the 12 o'clock position and pull the wheel down while moving your left hand back down to 7 o'clock, pushing and pulling the wheel as you complete the turn. Now, remember to look through the turn and well ahead of your intended path. Steer just enough to move in the direction you want to go. In some situations, it's okay to recover the wheel by letting it slide through your hands, constantly keeping in contact with it. Understanding what type of environment you are driving in is also important to the driving task. Consider the road surface. Is it gravel, blacktop, asphalt, concrete, or dirt? What about roadside design? Is there a safe shoulder for an escape path? How many lanes are there? What type of traffic are you likely to encounter? And what type of traffic controls are there? Is the road adequately marked with traffic signs? And are there special hazards you need to be concerned with? Each driving environment calls for its own defensive driving thinking and starts with visual awareness. So look closely at each of these to determine how you will drive and how you will have a plan in place while driving in each situation. Here's a few that you will come in contact with. Changing roads, such as driving on a two-way road that turns into a windy road with blind turns, may cause problems. School zones and parking lots can be dangerous. Many accidents involving property damage and some injuries occur in parking lots, so always be aware of other drivers and always give that little extra time to maneuver while other drivers are leaving or taking parking spaces. Changing traffic lights, construction, or just plain congested streets and intersections are hazards. On the open highway, slow-moving vehicles are dangerous. And most of all, there are always hazards when passing or being passed on highways where there are no passing lanes available. On the rural highway, it is commonly the higher speed combined with poor roadside design that causes most problems. On freeways, it's tight clusters of cars and tailgating that increases the chances of rear-end collisions and multiple car crashes. Amazingly, even a straight, smooth road can be tricky, as drivers can be lulled into thinking it's easy and safe, but then make mistakes. that brings us to a very critical part of the driving task. That's concentration. Never look away for more than 1 second at a time from the driving task because the traffic environment changes constantly and hazards appear suddenly. Distractions such as using your cell phone or receiving cell phone calls, large numbers of parked cars and roadside activities not relevant to the driving task can reduce your visual awareness drastically and force you to miss an important traffic clue. Being distracted is a mistake that is all too common and can be deadly, especially when you're using a cell phone while driving. Drivers need to develop an organized pattern of searching and scanning for trouble as part of the driving task and as part of being a defensive driver. The first step in that pattern is to check the vehicle ahead and any sign in front of you. Scanning and searching also includes quick glances to the rearview mirror every 5 or 10 seconds, or whenever changing speed or direction in traffic. It must also include glances to the sides as you approach crossroads and streets. A good rule to remember at railroad crossings and unmarked intersections is the left, right, left rule. That's where you first look left, then right, and then left again to ensure that it is safe to move forward. It's also a good idea to cover your brake for yields in case you have to make a sudden stop. Blind spot glances before moving right or left in traffic are essential. Scan 12 seconds ahead for brake lights, signal lights, backup lights, and pertinent actions of other roadway users. Traffic lights, pavement markings, signs, and changing road conditions must constantly receive attention on a systematic basis. And don't forget that scanning and searching also means looking at your own vehicle's instrument panel to check for speed, adjustments, and possible malfunctions. Communication is an important part of the driving task, and we don't mean cell phones. Communication with other drivers means letting other drivers know not only where you are at all times, but what you are planning to do. Things like signaling well in advance of a turn or a lane change. Using your headlights when there is any question of visibility to other drivers. Flashing your brake lights by tapping the brake tells others you're slowing down or stopping or that there is danger ahead. Putting on your emergency flashers communicates car troubles to others. And showing your backup lights to others to let them know your intentions are examples of good communication. Lightly tapping your horn alerts others of your presence, but needs to be used sparingly as it may be annoying to other drivers. Turning on your headlights at twilight and at night will alert your presence to others. Even your position in traffic communicates your presence and at times your intention. Be certain you are seen and stay out of the other driver's blind spots. When changing lanes, be sure to check your mirrors. Signal and check your blind spot. Keep at least a 2-second space cushion behind the vehicle ahead in ideal conditions. And in bad weather or when conditions are not ideal, increase that space to 3 or 4 seconds. Control your space to the sides, giving parked cars at least the length of one car door. Controlling the space behind you is also important, so if you're being tailgated, check your speedometer. If you're going too slow, speed up. You could move to the right to allow the tailgater to pass. You may also consider tapping your brakes to warn that driver that's behind you. Communicating by eye contact whenever possible can be especially effective in right-of-way situations. Your emotional state is also part of the driving task. Fatigue causes you to be more easily frustrated and angered, and anger, like other strong emotions, can adversely affect the driving task. Pull over if you're tired. And of course, do not use alcohol or drugs before you get behind the wheel of a car, as they will affect your competence and awareness and put you and others on the road in danger. One of the most important driving tasks is defensive driving. Defensive driving is just another name for intelligent or safe driving. It's also a defensive outlook that expects the unexpected. As a defensive driver, when there are potential dangers, anticipate the worst. Defensive driving means having a defense ready, a plan of action for whatever may happen around you, And as we mentioned earlier, it requires that you do keep a lookout for problems, constantly scanning the scene to the front, to the sides, and behind you. You must constantly determine how you escape or avoid trouble if it occurs. One commonly used system of defensive driving is called the IPDE system. You could manage the most complex traffic situations by using the IPDE formula. I for identify problems well in advance. P for predict what might happen and expect the worst. D, decide the best course of action. And E, execute a maneuver that will minimize trouble. Now, let's put the IPDE system to the test. Here are some defensive driving scenarios you may come across. Can you identify the IPDE elements if you were in this situation? There is a bicyclist riding in the bike lane to your right. He's approaching a car that's parked in the bike lane. What do? There are two potential hazards here. The first is the bicyclist will probably have to leave the bike lane and enter your lane. So if you try to pass him before he gets to the parked car, you could collide with the rider. The second hazard is that he will move into your lane, forcing you into the next lane and causing a collision with the car that's to your left. So, you identify the bicyclist and the parked car. You predict that he will leave the bike lane and go around the parked car. So, you decide that the best thing to do is to slow down, let the rider pass the parked car first. You execute by letting the rider stay in front of you. You let him pass the parked car and return to his bike lane. Now you will pass the parked car and then the bicyclist as he returns to the bike lane. By using the IPDE system, you successfully separated two potential hazards by executing your defensive driving maneuver and decreasing your speed. Since tailgating is a leading cause of accidents, let's take a look at this situation. You look in the rearview mirror and notice that the driver behind you is tailgating very closely. This is an easy one to identify. So you predict that by slamming on your brakes would definitely not be a safe maneuver. One possible decision would be to gradually slow down to encourage the other driver to pass, or you might try and find a safe place and time to pull over to the right and let them pass. Of course, in any tailgating situation, plan ahead and keep a good space cushion, especially in front of you to execute the proper defensive maneuver. The driving task and defensive driving are ways to help you avoid accidents and potential hazards. Properly share the roads and highways with others, and use these tasks and defensive driving skills to prepare for the unexpected. Following the IPDE system of identifying, predicting, deciding, and executing a clean, safe maneuver will keep you and other drivers safe.